Hi, you're listening to Get Site Control Insider, the podcast where we share tactics for optimizing website conversion rates. In this episode, we'll cover 8 tips to turn website pop-ups into conversion boosters. Wondering what a perfect pop-up should look like? Stay tuned to find out. Love them or hate them, pop-ups work wonders. But that's only if you use them right. They can help you grow email lists, promote offers, and just generally drive people towards performing important actions at your site. But not all pop-ups are created equal, though. And there's a big difference in performance between an optimized pop-up design and an unoptimized one. Obviously, you want your pop-ups to be one of the former. So, let's go ahead and review the tips for creating better pop-ups for your website using Get Site Control. Beyond the design and content, we'll also delve into some other relevant areas, like when and where you display your pop-ups. Let's dive right in. Tip number 1. Make sure the pop-up matches the rest of your site. When you design your pop-up, you want it to feel like it's a part of your site, rather than an intrusion. To achieve that, make sure to match the style, colors, and typography of the rest of your site. That way, when your pop-up does appear, it will feel like part of the experience, rather than an outside force inserting itself into your site. Using the Appearance tab in the Get Site Control pop-up builder, you'll be able to tweak all these design elements even if you're a complete non-techie. Tip number 2. Have a clear call to action. You're probably displaying a pop-up on your site because you want your visitors to do something. That something could be signing up for your email list, checking out a special offer, participating in a survey, or anything else. To drive people towards performing that action, you want to have a single button with a strong call to action, CTA. For an email newsletter pop-up, a common example is subscribe. It's short, simple, and tells visitors exactly what to do and what's going to happen. Don't be afraid to get a little bit more creative, though. For example, instead of subscribe, you can put join the list or get weekly updates. And if you're using pop-ups to drive traffic to a sale on your website, something like get discount is more enticing than visit sale, because in the end, everyone wants a discount, right? Tip number 3. Use contrasting colors for your call to action button. A compelling CTA isn't just about the text, it's also about grabbing your visitors' attention in other ways, namely color. You want to use a color that contrasts with the rest of your pop-up to specifically draw visitors' eyeballs right to the button that you want them to click. Want to go the extra mile? Pick a color that would draw attention while still matching the rest of the site theme. This way, you'll make the pop-up look even more coherent. Tip number 4. Experiment with different formats. When you hear the word pop-up, the first thing that comes to mind is probably one of those modal pop-ups that appear and take over your screen until you click a button. While full screen and modal pop-ups are a thing, you shouldn't be afraid to experiment with less intrusive methods. For example, you can try floating bars or side-ins to still drive action without requiring a modal interaction. Tip number 5. Use microcopy to allay fears. Microcopy is a small, unobtrusive piece of text near your CTA button that allays the fears some people might have of interacting with your pop-up. For example, if you have an email lead generation pop-up, a natural fear that most people will have is, I don't want to get spam emails. Using microcopy, you can eliminate those fears by saying something like, we won't ever share your email and we'll only send you X emails per week. That way, people know exactly what they're getting into. Tip number 6. Remember about mobile audience and treat it differently. Nowadays, web traffic is split about 50-50 between desktop and mobile visitors. When you're designing pop-ups, though, it's easy to forget about that and just focus on the desktop experience of your pop-ups. Use the Mobile View tab when you create a pop-up to adjust its appearance for smaller screens, and make sure your mobile visitors have a great experience too. For instance, for the mobile version of your pop-ups, you can change the size, the image, and its position. As a rule, if you're creating a modal pop-up for desktop screens, on mobile, you'll want to consider a less obtrusive implementation, like a slide-in or a sticky bar, for example. Remember, not only are modal pop-ups tough for people to interact with on touch devices, but Google also rolled out a penalty on aggressive mobile interstitials back in 2017. Tip number 7. Aim for personalization when possible. Personalization is the idea of matching your pop-up's content to the content on the page of which it displays. So rather than having one site-wide pop-up, you might want to create different pop-ups, each tailored toward a specific part of your site or category of content. While this does require a little more upfront work, it can pay dividends because your visitors are more likely to engage with a personalized offer. Tip number 8. Play around with the timing. Finally, while timing isn't a part of pop-up design from an aesthetic perspective, it is an important part of creating an effective website pop-up. Rather than displaying your call to action right away, you can experiment with various delays and triggers. For instance, Get Site Control allows you to display pop-ups once a visitor has scrolled to a certain depth on the page, spent a certain amount of time on your website, or visited a certain number of pages. You can also display pop-ups at exit intent or upon clicks. The point is, if you wait until visitors are engaged to ask for their email address, for example, there's a better chance that a visitor will be willing to subscribe. Now that you've got your dose of pop-up design inspiration, go ahead and try creating one. Visit GetSiteControl.com and give it a spin for free. You'll be able to easily build pop-ups for growing your email list, promoting offers, surveying visitors, and a lot more. Don't forget to subscribe for our weekly marketing tips and follow us on Twitter. Thank you for listening. Until next time.